Good morning. My name is Patrick Allen, and I'm an interviewer for the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress. And it is administered in the Cincinnati area by the Cincinnati-Hamilton County Public Library under the direction of Brian Powers. And today is March the 5th, and we have the pleasure of interviewing a Vietnam veteran, Raymond C. Westrich. Mr. Westrich.
Good morning.
Thank you for doing this interview, and I understand you go by Ray?
I do.
Okay. Before we get into your military, let's talk about your before military life. Where and when were you born?
I was born in December 1944. My parents lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was born in College Hill.
And were you born in the hospital or at home?
I was born at the hospital.
What hospital do you remember?
Good Sam. I was 2.5 months premature and was not expected to survive.
Oh,
and
wow.
my parents unfortunately had planned for my funeral, which fortunately never came about.
And hopefully it doesn't come about for a few more years.
Hopefully.
Oh, wow. That's, were you their first child, or did they have other children?
I have 2 older brothers and an older sister.
Okay.
And 2 younger brothers.
Were they all born in a timely fashion, or did they have trouble too?
No, I was the only one that had issues.
What were your dad's name and also your mom's name?
My father's name was Edward Westrich. My mother was Mary Alice Dwyer Westrich.
Dwyer was
Correct.
her maiden name?
Correct.
D-W-Y-E-R?
Yes.
Do you remember when your dad was born?
He was born in August of 1909, and my mom was born in March of 1914.
Do you know how they became acquainted with each other leading up to their marriage?
I do. My mother was born in Columbus, Ohio. She migrated to Cincinnati after she graduated from high school. And she lived at a place in Cincinnati called the Fontbonne. And she had a roommate there who had a boyfriend who worked at Procter & Gamble. And he had a friend who had a car, and the boyfriend did not have a car, so that person with a car was my father.
All right.
So that's how my mom and dad met, and they were married in 1935.
I was born in Columbus. Do you know where she lived in Columbus?
708 Lily Avenue.
I'm not familiar with that. Was that north, south, east, west?
It was in Columbus, and
Okay.
I'm not sure direction.
Okay.
I was there as a kid many times, but
Do you remember what school she went to?
she graduated from Holy Rosary High School
All right.
in 1932.
I had a cousin that graduated from Holy Rosary. So tell me a little bit about your siblings, your older brother and your sisters.
My 2 older brothers both went to Roger Bacon High School.
What was the oldest one?
Jim,
Okay.
he graduated from Xavier University. Larry also went to Roger Bacon. He was an Enquirer carrier for his career. In their 20s, they were both in the Air National Guard in the 60s. Larry was stationed in Germany for a year during the Berlin crisis.
Did Jim marry?
He did, and lived in the Dayton area. He's now deceased.
And what was his wife's name?
His wife's name was Mary.
They have children?
Yes, they have 5 children.
Do you have any relationship with them? Do you see them, or?
We see them while Jim and Mary are both deceased, and we see some of their family once or twice a year.
Okay. And how about Larry?
Yeah, Larry lived in the Cincinnati area. He's also deceased. He died at the beginning of the pandemic. He has 4 children. 3 of them are out of town. 1 of them is local, and we see her regularly, as well as my sister-in-law.
And what was his wife's name?
Diane.
And you had a sister?
Yes, Betty. She was also local. She unfortunately passed away from cancer when she was at age 60 in 2000.
And did Betty marry?
She did not.
Okay. And did you have 2 other brothers?
I do.
Ron?
Ron and Paul. Ron married, has 2 kids. Unfortunately, he is in a nursing home right now. He's unable to walk. And Paul also lives in Cincinnati, and his wife's name is Kathy, and he is retired.
Where did he retire from?
Planters Peanuts, or Nabisco.
And how about Ron? Was he
He
working
worked
before
for Hamilton County.
Okay. And did Ron have children?
Ron has 2 children.
2.
Yes.
And Paul?
Paul has 4 kids.
So where did you live as a youngster?
When I was growing up in my early years, we lived in College Hill. When I was in the 4th grade, we moved to Finneytown. I attended St. Vivian's grade school. For high school, I went to St. Gregory Seminary and was in the seminary for high school and for a semester of college. And then I went to Xavier for the last 3.25 years.
So did you go to St. Gregory Seminary with the idea that you might become a priest?
Correct.
Is there a denomination for St. Gregory?
It would be the diocesan priests of
Okay.
the Cincinnati area.
And you were there for how many years? About 6?
4.5.
4.5?
Yeah.
And what changed your mind?
I woke up many mornings and thought to myself, why am I here?
That's a good enough reason. And the school you went to in grade school was St. Vivian?
Correct.
Vivian?
Correct.
And that was in Finneytown?
Yes.
That's a suburb of Cincinnati, so to speak.
Yes.
And then you went to Xavier University?
Correct.
When did you graduate Xavier?
I graduated in 1967.
What did you take? What was your major?
Business. When I graduated, I took a job at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base doing computer programming as a civilian.
Okay.
And I was there for a year and got my notice to visit the draft board.
So you didn't volunteer, they volunteered you.
That is correct, yes.
So where did you go to sign up?
Downtown Cincinnati, and took my physical and passed the physical. And they put me in an airplane and sent me to Fort Benning, Georgia for basic training.
Did you do that right away, or did you go
Immediately.
home?
Immediately.
Right away?
Yeah.
Fort Benning?
Correct. That was my first airplane flight.
Well, after your physical and everything, did you know you were going to be going right away, or had you said goodbye to your parents, or what?
I had said goodbye, and I don't know if I knew at that point or not, but they had me and they kept me.
So where did you leave from for Fort Benning?
Greater Cincinnati Airport, and we flew into Atlanta.
Was that a commercial flight, or?
Yes.
All right. And from Atlanta to the base?
Correct.
How did you get there?
By bus.
How long were you at Fort Benning?
For 8 or 9 weeks of basic training.
And that was Army?
Correct.
Did you have any choice when you signed up what you were going to go into?
No choice. But I understand from friends that when they were drafted, they needed men to go into the Marines, and they kind of said, you're Army, you're Marine, you're Army, you're Marine. But I was fortunate enough that I was the Army.
And when was that you were inducted?
In June of 1968, I was inducted the day that Bobby Kennedy was shot.
June 7th?
Correct.
Had your dad been in the military?
He was not. He was in his early 30s when World War II broke out, and he was working at P&G, and he had three kids, and the job he had, I guess, got him a deferment.
Okay. Well, our cameraman today is Tom Lee from Cincinnati, and he's got quite a family background in the military in World War II. He can give you a real good story after we finish with your interview. Tom has been very, very cooperative in helping me do these interviews as my camera person. Okay, so how long were you down at Fort Benning, and what kind of training did you have there?
I was there for basic training for 8 or 9 weeks, just the usual basic training, and from there I went to...
A lot of marching?
A lot of marching, a lot of hot weather. I got a tremendous suntan from here to here and here to here.
Okay, so you were there how long? About 7 weeks?
8 or 9.
Okay, and then where did you go?
I went to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, to my assignment there.
How did you get to Fort Sheridan?
Well, I think I had a week leave from Fort Benning, and as I recall, I drove to Fort Sheridan from Cincinnati.
Okay. So what did you do with your car once you got there? Or did somebody bring your car back?
No, I was able to have a car.
What did you do up at Sheridan?
I was a computer programmer. Actually, I got to Sheridan in, I guess, August of '68, and the Democratic Convention had just started, and the Marines from Fort Sheridan were called out because of all the demonstrators at the convention.
Where'd you learn your computer programming?
I started that at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base the year that I was working there.
Okay. So did any of that training carry through at Fort Benning or at Fort Sheridan?
It carried through at Fort Sheridan, but not forward to Vietnam.
How long were you at Sheridan?
From early September of '68 until the spring of '69. So I guess about 6 months, 7 months.
What kind of accommodations did you have there at Fort Sheridan?
We lived in 2-story barracks. Pretty basic.
What rank were you then?
I guess E2, private.
How was the food there?
I guess it was okay. I don't remember in particular.
Did you have any leave from Fort Sheridan? Once you got to Fort Sheridan, did you have any leave before you went to Vietnam?
Yes, I had a week.
How'd you get home?
Again, I had a car, so I was able to drive.
Then, after that week, did you have to report back to Sheridan, or did you go someplace else?
Well, I guess I went from Sheridan to Fort Lewis, Kansas. Is that the fort in Kansas? I can't remember where I took.
How'd you get there?
By bus, where I took training for Vietnam, where we had to go out and to the rifle range, and quite honestly, I don't remember what else we did, but I do remember.
Do you have any jungle training there at Fort
Yeah, we
Lewis?
must have had jungle training and been issued clothing. One thing I definitely remember there was that I had to shoot left-handed because I can't close my left eye to shoot right-handed, and it's a bit awkward, and the bullets eject on the right side, and it was cold winter, and I had a jacket on up to my neck, and one of the bullets ejected and went down my collar, burned my neck.
Oh, gee. Now, you're married, aren't you?
Correct.
And your wife's name?
Elaine.
When did you meet Elaine?
I met her when I was in college.
Okay, at Xavier?
Yes. Actually, we met, she went to Mount St. Joe, and I was invited to a sock hop, as they called them back in those days, at Mount St. Joe, and with her brother, who was a classmate of mine in high school. And we met, and that was history.
But, so were you dating with her when you were in Fort Benning and also
Yes.
Sheridan?
Yes.
When you came back for the week from Sheridan, did you have a chance to see her that
Yes.
week?
Yeah, and that's, we were, between the time that I left that week and before I went to Vietnam is when we were engaged.
Okay. But you didn't get married till when? You got back from Vietnam?
Correct.
So did you go to Vietnam directly from Fort Lewis, or did you go over the coast?
Well, actually, as I recall, well, I guess I don't remember. I went to the coast
Okay.
and left from someplace on the West Coast. We went through Alaska, Japan, and then on to Vietnam.
By plane?
Yes.
Was that commercial or
Yes,
military?
TWA, as I recall.
Okay. And do you remember where you left from in Alaska?
Anchorage
And you refueled or stopped where?
in
Guam?
Japan.
Japan?
Yes.
Did you have any time to spend in Japan, or
No.
is that just a refueling? And
Correct.
then from Japan you went to Cam Ranh Bay?
I honestly don't remember where we landed.
Okay.
I just remember being very nervous when we landed, not knowing what was going to be on the ground,
All right.
but everything was fine, of course.
When you got out of the plane, what struck you?
The heat, I guess.
Was there any odor?
I don't remember that, no.
Okay. But do you remember a blast of heat when you
Yeah.
got off the plane? No matter where you landed, where was your station over in Vietnam?
I was at Cam Ranh Bay, and I honestly don't remember how we got to Cam Ranh Bay.
All right.
I do remember that it was very hot there. It was the spring, and I couldn't sleep at night without a fan blowing on me. It was that hot.
Okay, I brought a map for us to take a look at, and we'll have Tom tell us how we need to.
Well, first of all, rotate it clockwise. There we go. Okay. So go ahead and point at it, Ray.
And this is Cam Ranh down here.
Now, were you there all the time?
I was, yes.
You didn't go out into the field?
I did
any?
not.
All right.
The only times I left Cam Ranh, we went on a day trip one time then to Nha Trang, which is just a little bit north,
Okay.
and I left for R&R.
What were your accommodations there at Cam Ranh Bay?
I lived in a hooch, as it was called.
What was that like?
It was rather small. I had a private room. The bed was built into the wall and was on an outside wall on two sides. And many times I would wake up at night because roaches were calling on me. And would have to get spray and spray the whole room to get rid of the roaches.
What was the hooch made of? Was it concrete, or was it sandbags, or wood, or what?
It was, I believe, on a concrete base, and it was made of wood. And there was also some screening in there to keep bugs out and let some air in.
So it was solid up for a few feet, and then,
Yeah.
and then what was your roof?
I don't remember. There was also an open room in that hooch, and after I'd been there a while, in the morning I would wake up anybody that had to get up in the morning, And one morning, the fellow that I tried to wake up didn't wake up. He was dead from an overdose.
Oh,
He had gotten a Dear John letter and couldn't handle it.
how many fellows did you have in the hooch with you?
Maybe 6.
How was the food there at Cam Ranh Bay?
I guess it was fine. I really don't have memories of the food, although one day we did have green eggs and ham, or green ham and eggs, because it wasn't picturesque, but you had to eat what you got.
What were your duties there?
I worked in a Army depot, and when the supplies came in, there was usually a computer card on the supplies of some sort that came into our office, and we had to collate those and send them over to the computer room.
All right. As I remember looking at photos before we started, that was really a big supply base, wasn't it?
It was sizable, yeah.
Yeah. And being right there on the coast, what was that? Was that the China Sea?
Yes, which was very, very picturesque.
How many ships with materials would come in the average day or week?
Wasn't privy to that information. I have no idea.
All right. Well, tell me about your average day. What time would you get up?
You know, there's certain things that you forget after 50 years. And, you know, I don't remember the routine. I just remember working in the office, and we had some Vietnamese women working for us who would help us in the office.
What were they like? Were they young, old, middle age?
They were young.
Did they speak English?
For the most part, they did. I guess what I remember the most was when they would eat lunch, they would squat on top of the desks and eat their lunch in a squat position.
On the top of the desk?
On the top of the desk, yeah.
And did they eat the same food you did?
They would bring their own, and it had a very strong smell. I don't know what it was, but I was there in 1969 when we put a man on the moon, and we tried to tell the Vietnamese that we worked with that we had put a man on the moon, but they wouldn't believe us. I mean, I think it was just hard to communicate and hard for them to comprehend.
Well, tell me about these women. Were they, what kind of work did they do?
They would help us collate the cards.
Okay. So they weren't just gophers.
Right.
They did have some training.
Yes.
And how many would work in your office at any one time?
Just a couple.
Okay. Were they married? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Do you ever see their brothers or any of their family?
No.
What was their work schedule? Did they work the same hours you did?
As I recall.
Where did they live? Did they live in the
They lived
village?
off base.
Off
They
base.
had to go through security to get on base.
How did they get to the base? Do you know?
Bus, I suppose.
Okay. And did you have, in the base, did you have Vietnam men working in the base?
As far as I recall, my memory of all that's kind of hazy, to be honest.
How about food? Did you have to go to a mess hall to eat?
Yes.
And was that a big mess hall?
As I recall, yes.
How was the food there? All right.
That was okay.
Were there so many guys that you had to eat in shifts?
I don't remember that, no.
How about the leftovers? How did they dispose of the leftovers? Do you know that?
No idea.
How about your bathing facilities? Did you have anything in the hooch or outside the hooch, or what did you have?
I don't remember,
Okay.
sorry.
Do you even remember if you had hot and cold running water?
We must have had hot water, but I honestly don't remember. You would think you would remember stuff like that, but
Did you have to wear a military outfit for your work?
yes, just fatigues.
Mm-hmm. And who would take care of the laundry for you? Did you have Vietnamese women that would do that, or?
Good question. I don't remember that either.
Now, you said your sleeping accommodation was in the wall. Describe that for me.
Well, as I recall, it was a room that was, I guess, as wide as the bed was long, and the bed was on the end of the wall.
Okay.
And I guess the long part of the bed was on the outside wall, and one end of the bed was on an outside wall, and the other end was on the inside wall.
And did it have a regular mattress?
Yeah, we're just no box springs, but just a mattress.
Okay. How was the weather, generally speaking, while you were there? Were there seasons at all?
It was hot for the hot portion of the year and tolerable the rest of the year.
Did you have any monsoons?
I don't remember monsoons.
At work, did you have air conditioning?
I think we did have an air conditioning unit, now that you bring that up.
And in your hooch, you said
No.
you had a fan?
Yes.
Did everybody else in the hooch have a fan, or did you just have one for general circulation?
I don't remember.
All right. How long were you over there?
Just under a year.
During that year's period of time, did you have? You said you went for a day trip. Did you have any R&R time off?
I did. I guess the middle of December of '68. I went to Hong Kong for a week, maybe a little less. I'm not sure.
How'd you get there?
Commercial flight.
Any buddies go with you?
No, I was by myself.
What'd you do in Hong Kong?
Well, I remember there was a Christmas parade that I watched on the street. No problems watching it, even in the back row, because everybody in front of me was shorter than me. I remember going to the area of Hong Kong called Kowloon. I took a day trip by bus to the outskirts of Hong Kong. Went to a monastery. Rode around the suburban area of Hong Kong on bus.
And how was the food there in Hong Kong?
Fine, as far as I recall.
Did you go to any theaters or anything?
No, I do remember buying 2 suits when I was in Hong Kong for when I came back.
Did you ship them home, or did you take them with you back to base?
No, I think when they were made, I think I kept one and shipped one. Then I also bought Elaine some gifts while I was there.
So are you communicating with Elaine all the time you're over there in Vietnam?
By letter, yeah.
Did you ever have access to the phone to either call your parents or Elaine?
Just once, and that was humorous in that I called my mom and dad, and he had to say over and then talk, and my mom would talk and then say over, so it didn't work well for her.
And did you write letters?
Yeah, we wrote
Mom and
letters
Dad?
back and forth, yeah.
There at Cam Ranh Bay, were you exposed to any enemy attacks, mortar attacks, rocket attacks, or anything?
Occasionally, but they were rare. The last day that I was there, the last night I was there, we had incoming, And there was a bunker right outside where I slept. And I was the first one in the bunker because I was going home the next day and I wanted to get out of there.
So what was the difference between the bunker and the hooch?
It had concrete over the top of it.
And how many people could fit in the bunker?
Oh, I guess 10 or 12 maybe.
So you were the first one in there?
I was the first one in, yes.
And did any of the incoming land close to the bunker at all?
No, it was,
You ever experience any times when the enemy tried to infiltrate the camp?
well, there was one time we went out for guard duty, but there was nothing happened.
Well, tell me about guard duty.
I know it was only once we had night vision goggles. We were someplace remote on the base. We went out on deuce and halves and spent the night in the dark. Nothing happened.
Well, what were you in at the guard station? Did you have a hut or a tower?
I think we were just on the ground, on hilltop, as I recall.
And you say it was remote from the base?
Yes.
How far away was it?
Oh, a few miles maybe.
Well, what was the object of that duty?
I'm not sure that I ever knew.
How many fellows went with you?
5 or 6 maybe, and that wasn't.
And what armament did you have?
We had weapons. We had our M14s is what I recall.
And
We didn't fire them.
did you have any means of communicating back to the main base? Did you have a radio man with you or anything?
We must have. I don't remember that.
Did you just have that one time while you were there?
Yes.
Did you have any change in rank while you were there in Vietnam?
I ended up as a E5 or Spec 5. I don't remember if I got that when I was there or before I went.
How did you know that you were going to be coming home? Did you already know a specific date when you got there, or did they tell you at some point in time, well, you know, you got another 30 days, or you got another week, or you got another day? How did that go?
Well, we anticipated being there a year, and I guess within 30 days of, or maybe within 60 days of that year being up, they said we would be going home, or I would be going home in 30 days.
Did they give you a chance to stay over?
Well, I could have stayed over and gone on another R&R, but I figured it was worth going home and not going on the R&R.
Did they give you a chance to spend another 6 months over there?
If they did, that went over my head.
You wanted to get home and get out of there.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Where did you leave from? Did you leave from Cam Ranh Bay?
As I recall, I did, and we flew into the West Coast, and I ended up at Fort Lewis, Washington.
Again, was that a commercial plane?
Yes. And I remember when we landed, everybody clapped and hooray and went crazy.
But that was landing at the Army base? Or was that at the local airport?
Must have been at the local airport.
Well, I've heard tales of some of the guys that came back, the people that greeted them were not real kind to them.
I did not have that problem, but yeah, I heard many stories like that.
When you came back, were you in uniform or civilian clothes?
I was in uniform because those were the only clothes I had. So I went from Fort Lewis, Washington, or Seattle, I guess, to Chicago by commercial flight standby, and then from Chicago to Cincinnati.
Again, by plane?
Correct.
Anybody greet you at the Cincinnati airport from the family or your girlfriend?
I think my parents picked me up at the airport, And I didn't see Elaine till the next day, till I
Again,
slept 12 hours, I think, and then went and saw her.
so again, from Fort Lewis to Chicago to Cincinnati, were you in uniform all that
Yes.
time?
Yes.
Okay. And I suppose your mom was tickled pink to see you when
Yeah.
you got back to the airport. And your father probably.
Well, and I was flying standby, so they, of course, didn't know when I was going to get home
Okay.
until I got on the plane.
All right. But once you got on the plane, you were able to communicate with them?
As I recall, I don't remember that anymore. I just remember the happiness of being in the U.S. and getting home.
Were you able to bring home or send home any souvenirs from Vietnam?
No.
I saw a lot of photos that you took. Was that your personal camera?
Yes.
And were you able to bring that home with you?
Yes.
Did anybody vet the pictures that you had taken to make sure you weren't bringing home any secure information?
No.
Let me go back to your R&R in Hong Kong. Did you have any personal contact with the citizens down there? How did they treat you?
As I recall, everything was fine. And
Were you in civilian clothes then, or uniform?
yes, I was in civilian clothes. And
Okay, so you get back home and you get your 12 hours of sleep, and then you decide you're going to go see your wife, your fiance.
Yeah.
I suppose that was an extremely happy meeting.
Yes, it was.
Where was that? At her house, your house, or someplace in
Well,
between?
I was at her house. She was a high school teacher, and I didn't set an alarm that day, and I think I went to bed at 10 o'clock the night before and didn't wake up till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it was after school when I
Okay.
went.
Where was she teaching?
Mother Mercy High School.
Here in Cincinnati?
Yes.
What did she teach?
Problems of democracy.
That was appropriate at the time, certainly, wasn't it? And,
Yes.
and still is. Where had she gone to Xavier? No, you said she went to Mount St. Joe?
Yes.
At that time, was that an all-girls school?
Yes.
But that's changed now, it's
Yes.
co-ed.
And of course, Xavier was an all-boys school
Right.
at that time.
Xavier used to have some good basketball teams.
They still do.
Yes. But they were particularly good back then. Okay, when you got home, how soon was it? What was your wedding date?
I got home in, I guess, April, and we got married in July
Where did you get married?
at Our Lady of Lourdes Church on the west side.
Did Elaine have siblings?
She did.
How many siblings did she have?
She had 3, all brothers. She had a brother my age that I went to school with, Lewis. A younger brother, Rick, and a younger brother, Dan.
Are they all still living?
Lewis is deceased and Dan is deceased.
Okay.
Rick is still with us.
Did she continue to work as a teacher after you married?
No. Back in those days, when you were married, you usually quit your employment.
Had started having family?
Yes, and we did. Our son was born in November of '72.
And did she stay home and take care of the children all the
She
time
did.
they were at home?
Yes,
Did she ever return to work outside the home?
she did.
And what did she return to?
Well, when the youngest was in school, she returned to the Oak Hill School District as an aide, classroom aide. And then she went back to school and got a library degree
Where did she get that?
at the University of Kentucky through the University of Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky University.
How long did that take?
Probably 4 years or so. And
did she continue to work at the Oak Hill
yes,
during that time?
yeah, just
So-
that was part-time.
So then when she got her degree in library science, what did she do then?
She got a part-time job at a library in Hamilton. And then a few years after that, she went full-time at the Hamilton County Library.
How long did it take you to get employment once you got home?
Probably a month or 6 weeks, I guess. And I got a job at Cincinnati Bell and as a computer programmer. And I worked there after the company changed names several times. I worked until 2002.
So you worked there, what, about 50 years?
No, it's 35 years.
35?
30, yeah.
When did you retire? In '02?
Yes, so that would have been 32 years.
Yeah, yeah. Where was your office located? Downtown?
Downtown Cincinnati, yeah.
All the 35 years you worked downtown?
Yes, in various places, various office buildings, but all downtown.
Tell me about your residencies. When you got married, where did you live?
We had an apartment on the west side of Cincinnati for a couple of years. Then we moved to a home on Turf Lane on the west side until 1979. And in 1979, we moved to King Oak Drive in Oak Hills until 2006, when we moved to this location.
And this location
This
is
is,
on
Montford
West-
Heights,
West Fork Road,
correct.
Montford Heights. So when did Elaine retire from work, or is she still working?
No, she retired in maybe 2008.
What do you folks do for entertainment? Do you travel or go to plays, movies, volunteer?
We like to travel. We both volunteer. Elaine is a volunteer at the Underground Railroad Freedom Center. I
And that's
volunteered.
located in Cincinnati.
Yes,
That's quite a place, is it not?
yes, yes,
It's nationally known.
yes. And I volunteered there for maybe 10 years. I also did Meals on Wheels for a while.
Okay.
I volunteer at St. Leo's Food Pantry in Fairmount in Cincinnati. Volunteered for many years at a soup kitchen downtown called Our Daily Bread. And we do like to travel.
So where have you traveled? Nationally or internationally? Or both?
Internationally, we've been to Europe several times. Been to Spain, Germany. We did a Rhine River trip 18 months ago. That was monumental in that on the last day of the trip, I got up not feeling well and ended up at the University of Freiburg, and they told me I needed heart stent. So my souvenirs from Germany were two heart stents.
Well, it happened at the right place at the right time,
Yes,
didn't it?
it did, because Freiburg University was a great hospital and they treated me very well.
And What were this is the last day of your boat trip?
Correct.
And what were your symptoms? It's just
I took a shower that morning, and after the shower, I just was sweating profusely and knew something was not right.
Did they have a ship doctor that looked at you? Or?
Well, we went to the front desk and said we needed a doctor, and they sent us to a clinic that was about 10 minutes away. The clinic said you need to go to the clinic at the University of Freiburg, which we did. And
how long is this taking? You're taking a shower, you don't, and you're sweating, and by the time you get to Freiburg,
probably 2 hours had elapsed. At that clinic, they took a lot of tests and said you needed to go next door to the hospital. And then at the hospital, they said you need a stent. And I said, well, fine, I'll do that when I get home. And they said, you don't understand. You need a stent now.
And how long were you in the hospital?
For 5 days.
Okay.
And then they sent me home.
And what's Elaine doing while you're there?
Well, she had the worst of the deal, I think, in that all our belongings were still on the ship. So she had to go back to the ship, collect our belongings, pack them all up, get back to the University of Freiburg, get a place to stay while I'm undergoing surgery. So,
so she's knitting socks, so to speak, worrying about you.
Yeah.
So when you got out of the hospital, where did you go?
Well, we had planned to spend 5 days in Switzerland. So instead, I spent the 5 days in the hospital. So we still had the reservations for our trip home through Zurich. So we took the flights home that we were scheduled to take. The problem was I couldn't lift anything because I had incisions, and they didn't want me to hurt the incisions. So we sent one suitcase home, and we each had a backpack, and between the two of us, one small briefcase. So we were able to take the train to Zurich.
So did you have, you weren't able to enjoy your visit to Zurich, were you?
No, not very much.
So were you able to cancel those reservations and get refunds? Or
through Switzerland, yeah, we were able to cancel our reservations in Switzerland, and we hadn't paid for that part yet.
So did you fly directly to the States from Switzerland?
We went from Zurich to Amsterdam to Detroit to Cincinnati, and that was...
Is that all one continuous flight?
No, that was separate flights to each city. So, and it was a long, long flight because, you had lots of things on my mind.
Yeah, sure. So when you got home from that trip, how were you feeling?
Well, I didn't know what I could do, honestly, what I could eat or what I could lift, what physical activity I could do. One of the kids had got us an appointment with our general practitioner, so I was able to see him. And fortunately, the heart doctor that he recommended had a cancellation, and I was able to see him within days.
Good.
So I got my medication squared away, and I was able to get into a heart rehab and get exercise and get a regimen of what I could eat and what I could do. So that got me back on the straight and narrow pretty quickly.
Now, when was all this happening? What year?
That was 18 months ago, so that would have been in the fall of 2022.
Yeah. So how are you feeling now?
I feel great. I still do my rehab exercises every day, and I've regained my strength. And
so do you do those exercises at home, or do you still go to an outpatient?
No, I do them at home.
Okay. You're better than I am. So what kind of medals or badges or commendations or anything did you have military-wise? Yeah, the Vietnam Service Medal.
Right. I got a Bronze Star that I received when I got home in the mail.
And Was that for your for the time that you went out on patrol?
No, that was just for my office time.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that was it.
There's a MKM M14. Does that just mean you were qualified for the shooting the M14?
Yes, somehow.
NDSM, do you know what that was?
No.
National Defense Service Medal.
Is that right?
I haven't.
Okay.
No.
Tom knows all these. Did you have to serve in the reserves or anything, or was your military finished?
I did not serve in the reserves.
Tom, is there anything you want to?
Well, I'm going to open up. I'm going to cut a couple of questions. I'm going to walk closer. All right. So you got out of high school in 66?
I got out of high school in 63.
63. Oh, college on that.
College in 67.
67. Okay. So you have a college degree in
Correct.
computer science.
Actually, business management.
Okay. And a year's experience in a military setting of sorts at Wright-Patterson.
Correct.
So when you're inducted, were you offered a commission? Were you offered officer candidate school at some point? Or why
No.
did you just go enlist?
Actually, I'd been in ROTC at Xavier for 2
Wow.
years. No, nothing was ever mentioned about
Huh.
commission.
I guess they just needed warm bodies.
That was if I was drafted after the Tet offensive of 1968.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right. They needed warm bodies.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay.
Well, Ray, is there anything that we haven't talked about, either in your family life, your folks? I didn't ask you what your dad did. What kind of work did your dad do?
He worked at Procter & Gamble, making soap.
How long did he do that? Most of his career?
40-some years.
All right.
He retired in 1962.
And Procter & Gamble was located just outside Cincinnati?
It's in St. Bernard, yeah, in Cincinnati.
And how about your mother? How about Mary Alice?
She did not work outside the home.
She had her hands full.
Right, with 6 kids.
Taking care of 6 children, yeah. Yeah. What did Betty do work-wise?
Betty had a very hard life. Betty was epileptic, and as a result of that, it was difficult for her to find and hold a job. She worked at the Sheridan Gibson Hotel for a number of years in the office, and then she also worked at a car dealership for a while, and her last job, she worked at McDonald's.
Okay. How about Jim? What kind of work did he do?
Jim worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he
Was he an engineer or what?
he was his major was in physics, and he was in procurement. I think they looked at airplanes and maybe the design of the airplane and what they needed.
Where did he get his education? College?
He went to Xavier.
Xavier. How about your brother Larry? What kind of work did he do?
He was a newspaper carrier. He delivered the Enquirer and the Time Star when those were newspapers.
That's what he did as an adult?
Mm-hmm.
All right. How about Ron?
Ron worked at Hamilton County as a janitor.
How about Paul?
Paul worked for Nabisco as a salesperson, among other things.
So you and Jim both had college degrees.
And Paul also did.
Paul did?
Yeah.
Where did he go to school?
He went to the University of Cincinnati.
Okay. Well, we've been here for a while, and I've asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything you can think of? Going on with work, Hamilton County Library, you know, what did Elaine do at the library? Because, well, there's Elaine right there. Elaine, do you have anything you want to add to this interview? Sit over here next to Ray.
I've been here over by the table.
Is that his?
Those were notes that I put down.
So,
You have anything to add to this?
yeah, I was a children's librarian at the Delhi Branch Library for the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Library. I enjoyed that very much. And our office group that was there was great. So mostly to take care of my aging parents. I was able to retire by 60, back then, 60 years old. By that I meant you can retire prorated salary, you know, in retirement. But I had health care, which was good at 60 then, that I could take with me. So that after retirement, I was frequently with my parents, helping them out in their home. And then when they went to a facility, was frequently there almost many days a week. But then with our 4 children, we have now 13 grandchildren. So that also keeps us active in our retirement. The oldest is 22 and the youngest is 11 months old.
Oh, wow. That would keep you busy.
Yeah.
Now, Ray, I'm looking at some notes here that you had, and when you were up at Fort Sheridan, was that right on Lake Michigan?
Yes.
And you got a note here that you had 30 consecutive days of sub-zero
Correct.
temperature.
And you could see the lake through the barracks and not be looking out the window. The barracks were constructed that well.
Oh, gee. And tell me about levees.
Oh, we would periodically, maybe once a month or more frequently, get levies of guys who were being sent to Vietnam. And we had one gentleman who assumed he was going to be in the upcoming levy and jumped off the second floor balcony of the barracks and broke his leg because he didn't want to go to Vietnam.
He didn't try to kill himself, he just tried to hurt himself.
Well, I assume. I didn't know him.
And then when you went to Fort Lewis in Kansas for training, that was the same week that Ike died.
Correct.
All right. Over at Cam Ranh Bay on base, you made a note here of who your boss was?
Yeah, I believe it was Captain Meyer.
Captain Meyer.
Hello, Rick.
So at Cam Ranh Bay, you had a location close by for recreation?
We did. There was a small lake there, and you could go out and you could sail on that lake or swim.
Okay.
And it was a very picturesque area.
Can you hear me?
And it's hot over there
Yes.
all the time, wasn't it? Or was it hot at nighttime, or did the temperature go way down?
Well, that varied by time of year. I just remember when we initially went over, it was hot. It seemed like it was hot all the time. But I don't recall the heat after that. Maybe I just began to tolerate it. I don't remember.
Anything else? All right. Thank you so much for this interview, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed this chat with you very much.
My time in Vietnam was not as exciting as it was for many other people, but
Well, thank
that's
God.
probably a good thing.
Thank God.